Kid Cosmic is a new animated series on Netflix brought to us by everyone's favorite bushy-haired wacky cartoon creator, Craig McCracken. The show is about a kid named Kid who finds some stones that fell from space that give superpowers to whoever holds them. He gets the ability to fly. A girl named Jo, who's a waitress at a local diner, gets the ability to create portals and can travel just about anywhere. An old man named Papa G, who is kind of Kid's caretaker and he works at the local junkyard, he gets the ability to multiply himself. A cat named Tuna Sandwich gets psychic abilities and can see into the future. And a little girl named Rosa gets the ability to make herself giant, which is an appropriate power because there's nothing on Earth more destructive than a toddler. Together they form a ragtag superhero team to defend the Earth from aliens and protect the stones from evildoers who want to take them. They ain't the Avengers, but they'll have to do. So the first thing about the show that stands out is how it looks. It has a classic comic style, and I don't mean just comic books, but just comics in general, and it seems to draw a lot from stuff like Dennis the Menace and The Adventures of Tintin, where the characters are pretty simplistic looking, but they're also very identifiable and recognizable. And it draws from a lot of famous superhero comics as well, because Kid likes comic books, he likes superheroes, so naturally he's very enthusiastic when he gets a superpower of his own, because he wants to be like the heroes he reads about. And the show also makes some direct references to famous comics and famous scenes from comics, such as Batman, Superman, and Spider-Man. The music in the show is great too. It has a very fast-paced, grungy guitar sound, which fits well with the show because there's a lot of fast pace and fun action, and it just works all around. Overall, the show is pretty much what I expected it to be. If you've ever watched anything by Craig McCracken, if you've seen Wander Over Yonder or Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends or anything like that, then you know what to expect from this show. It's got the same high energy, it's got the same comedic timing, it's got the same jokes. But I think one of my favorite parts of this show is that the characters have no idea what they're doing. Like, some of them didn't even ask for any of these powers. I mean, some of them are enthusiastic, like Kid and Rosa, because, they make the best of it. Papa G learns to adapt because he's a handyman and he works in a junkyard, and having clones of yourself can be very useful. Jo tends to freak out a lot, especially when she was learning how to use her powers. And oftentimes, well, not even oftentimes, pretty much every time, they have to face an alien, and they're usually successful, but their victories are typically incidental. Like, they'll be fighting an alien, and then they'll end up, flying into a power line, or they can't breathe in Earth's atmosphere, or some other alien will show up and they'll duke it out and kill each other. So it's that kind of superhero show. They're not very good, but they try. But as the episodes go on, they learn to use their powers better, and they grow a little bit. Especially in the case of Kid, which is good because he makes some stupid decisions in this show. Like, really stupid decisions. Because he thinks it's fun. He has the power to fly, and he can do all kinds of cool stuff. But he's still a kid, and he needs to learn that he has to use his powers responsibly. And comparatively to Craig McCracken's other shows, this one is a little bit more edgy and has a little bit more dark humor in it. I was reading a thing where Craig McCracken said that he was kind of shocked at how much he was allowed to get away with when he did a show for streaming as opposed to a television network. You gotta love it when a talented creator like Craig gets a chance to, do something he wants to do and not always has to have a network executive breathing down his neck and telling him what to do all the time. You gotta imagine how relieved he must have felt when he found out, "You mean I could do whatever I want?" Dark joke, dark joke, dark joke. One of my favorite parts of the show was they were fighting a bunch of aliens, and Rosa was smashing all their ships and everything, and they were all parachuting to safety. And then Papa G goes, all right, we beat them. No sense in humiliating them further. And Rosa's like, okay, I'll send them back to space. So she scoops them all up into a silo or something, and then she flings them into the air. And then later on in the episode, they're actually in space on a spaceship, and they look out the window and you see them all floating dead in space. And Rose is like, "Are they sleeping?" And Papa G's like, yeah, they're sleeping. So you can expect some stuff like that in the show. So at this point, I want to talk about some spoilers for Season 1, so if you don't want the show spoiled for you, skip ahead to this time code. So it's established early on that Kid's parents are dead. They just kind of touched on it, I think, in episode 1. But then they followed up on it quite a few times. They established that it's still affecting him, and Papa G has been looking after him ever since that happened, and he uses superheroes and comic books as a way of coping. That was something I really didn't expect. Like I said, they did touch on it in the first episode, and I figured they would just leave it at that and, let the viewer put the pieces together. But no, they revisit that quite a few times. He's also very insecure, especially when the whole team gets put together, because a lot of them are a lot more effective than he is, because he can pretty much just fly, and that's it. He doesn't have, super strength or eye beams or whatever. Everyone else seems a lot more effective, especially Rosa, who just kind of destroys everything. So she's probably the most useful member of the team, especially when they're facing an invasion. So he's gets very upset about that, and at one point Papa G kind of sets up a little scenario for him where he has his clones disguise themselves as robots, and he acts like he's invading, and then he lets Kid just take out all his clones and everything, and he thinks he defeated a bunch of aliens. But of course he finds out about this later. There's this alien that shows up that is kind of trapped on Earth called, they call him Chuck. I don't think they ever established what his real name is, but he's kind of a dick, and he's just constantly berating Kid and telling him how stupid he is. I mean, sometimes he's not wrong, but still kind of a dick. So he ends up revealing that Papa G set up this whole thing, and Kid gets angry. So then he steals all the stones from all the other characters, and he uses them to try and fight off an alien invasion by himself. And he's pretty effective at it until he uses the stone that gives psychic powers, because as soon as he uses that, it kind of brings back the memory of when his parents died, and they died in a car crash that he was in. He was in the car when it happened. So while he did pretty good, he kind of failed to stop the aliens. But throughout the episodes, we've been seeing these dogs show up. They have these metal collars, and they have black fur and blue teeth, which, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm wondering if the design for the dogs came from the aliens from the movie Attack the Block. And if you've not seen that movie, check it out. It's really good. And it seemed like it was from some other alien that kept sending them to Earth, but they had to keep taking them out. But it turned out that they belonged to a government official who had been watching everyone while they were using their powers. And he helped stop the aliens, but then he takes the stones away. And he gives them to these soldiers who form this Power Rangers team, who are equally as awesome as they are goofy. Especially the green one. So they're fighting off the aliens now, but at one point some other aliens show up, and Kid notices that the powers the aliens have are the same powers as the stones are given off. So he tries to convince the government guy that the stones belong to them and that we shouldn't fight them, but the government guy is like, no, because everyone hates Earth and they think we're stupid, so now we have superpowers and we can fight them off. And I kind of like the parallel there, because, both Kid and this guy have motivations kind of stemming from insecurities, because he wants, the Earth to be cool, and Kid just wants the superpowers to, feel important and everything. But eventually they get the stones back from the not Power Rangers team, and they give them back to the aliens, and they establish that the stones are remnants of their destroyed worlds, and whoever holds them gets the powers of the inhabitants of that world. So then they leave, everything is cool, and then at the very end of the last episode, one of the aliens shows up and is hurt, and tells them that there's someone, doing stuff to our galaxy, and we need help. So she sends the entire town, this little, nowhere town in the middle of New Mexico or South California or whatever, into space. And she also establishes that there are 13 stones. And one thing to note is that there's a bunch of side characters in this show, and they're locals to the diner, and this little just little stretch of road. They work at the diner, or they hang out at the diner or whatever. And if I recall, there are 13 total people in this town. So they're setting up for season 2. Everyone's going to get a superpower, which I think is going to be great. I'm actually genuinely curious to see how that's going to go. Honestly, I don't think I have anything negative to say about this show. I think it's fantastic. If I still did top fives of the year videos, unfortunately I don't do those anymore, but if I did, this would be a contender for number one. As far as I'm concerned, this is another home run for Craig McCracken. This show is great. Wander Over Yonder was great. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends was great. The first couple of seasons of Powerpuff Girls were great when, he was working on it. There's a reason why Powerpuff Girls comes under such criticism, because every time someone else who's not the creator of the Powerpuff Girls gets a hold of it, it's never really that good, is it? So I highly recommend the show. It is absolutely fantastic and worth your time to watch. And I am greatly anticipating season 2, whenever that'll happen. But that's all I got for Kid Cosmic. Leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of it. My name is Rob, and have a wonderful day.